to be able to just make a choice on your own and just be able to speak for yourself.
This One's Wife. Last Chance Saloon. I told you this would happen. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Often, I see people pose this question. Why can't this one's wife just live a quiet life? Why can't she, with the millions that she's made, live in that large mansion with its 46,000 flushing toilets, with her husband and her children, and have a quiet and peaceful life? Perhaps go about doing good works here and there, no need to publicise them. Stop with the buying of awards. Stop with the turning up to make speeches that nobody wants to hear. Stop with the prancing around on the red carpet. Stop making it all about yourself. You'd avoid commentary from mainstream media and social media so that where that irks her, all of that would fall away because there'd be nothing to comment about because she's living privately. There are many famous people who manage that. You only know about them when they're doing promotional work, for instance, for their book or their film, or when they're appearing on the sporting stage, and the rest of the time you don't hear from them. They go about enjoying their life without having to make an appearance each and every day in both mainstream media and social media. There are famous people who are famous because they are talented. They are brilliant at what they do. They're fantastic sports people who have reached the top of their game. There are people that create fascinating television programs, direct entertaining films, write enthralling books. There are individuals that create video games that go on to be famous. There are actors and actresses who entertain, who become famous. And the reason that they are famous is because they have ability. Yes, they're publicised, but they have substance. But there are also other individuals who essentially become famous for being famous. That as a consequence of the fact that they are reported on, people then learn about what they are doing. They learn the minutiae of their life. And then a publicist decides, we'll just keep pumping you out there. They haven't got any actual talent. They don't bring anything particularly meaningful to the world. They just become famous for being famous. They continue to appear in the tabloids. They appear across social media, often because people don't like them. And yet they still remain in the public eye. But there's no substance behind them. Often these individuals are narcissists. And you might think that this one's wife would, as she claimed to have wanted, privacy and a quiet life. But you also should know that there's something that stops her doing this. Now, there are plenty of narcissists that are not famous. And those narcissists are able to control the people around them in their smaller fuel matrices. They draw sufficient fuel to get along through life from their smaller fuel matrix. Some friends, colleagues, family members, strangers, affair partners, etc. And they don't crave nor attain fame. They manage facades where they're mid-range or greater. They're individuals that gain residual benefits by way of money. But we don't hear about those individuals because not every narcissist craves publicity. But for this one's wife, she can't go quiet. She can't seek the private life because her narcissism, in essence, has gained a taste of this international fame and simply will not let it go. With this one's wife, her narcissism has always strove to push her upwards for the purposes of social climbing, to make her known, because by being known, it's easier to control people. By being known, there are more people to receive fuel from. By being known, the facade management can be bigger. By being known, more money can be made for the residual benefits. So it has caused her to seek fame and fortune. And she has indeed achieved that by becoming notably one of the most talked about women on the planet. Much of it, of course, criticism, which is not something she wants, but nevertheless, there is also some adulation that is in there, some praise, some fawning also. This one's wife is incapable of letting go of that. The only way that would happen is if everybody stopped talking about her, stopped making videos about her, stopped writing about her, and people completely lost interest in her. Then, although she would kick and rail against that, she would get nowhere because essentially people have got no contact with her, which is a death sentence to the narcissist. She is never going to voluntarily decide that she's going to take a step back. She can't. She wants to be famous. She wants to appear at the awards ceremonies. She wants to go to the big ticket events. She sought part of that by joining the royal family, but then because it became too great a threat to her control, this then meant that she asserted control by withdrawal, taking Harry with her across the ocean, as I predicted many years ago. Thereafter, she has sought to create an alternative for her by being an author, by being a bananitarian, by being a philanthropist, by being a fashion icon, by being a content creator. And she's failed at all of those things. She's failed with her cookery show. She's failed with her podcast. She's failed with American Riviera Orchard. She's failed with As Ever. But she remains desperate to be idolized, desperate to receive the fuel from as many people as she can obtain. And that's why now she's entered the last chance saloon, which is using her children. As I've explained to you before, although she believes that she loves her children, as a narcissist she is incapable of doing so because she has no emotional empathy. Her children are appliances that are there to be used like anybody else. The children are props. The children are simply commodities for her to control, draw fuel from, utilize to her ends, i.e. triangulate them with people to control those people and draw fuel from them and to manage her facade. We've seen her do it previously, but the little glimpses were few and far between. But you'll have noticed there's been an escalation. Take a look at this.
What do we think, Lily?
I think it's beautiful. Mama, watch it. Who said it?
3 photographs put up by this one's wife on her Instagram, the narcissist's use of social media, to broadcast her supposedly idyllic lifestyle by triangulating you with her children. A shot of a boy, presumably Archie, his face obscured by the rose. A picture of a girl, presumably Lilibet, not looking at the camera. And another picture of Archie, his back to the camera. She's triangulating the audience with her children in order to draw reactions and write the caption, "Sunday kind of love with my little loves." Plenty of people do things with their children, both during the week and weekdays. They don't need to publicise it, but she does because she's desperate. She's desperate to prompt a reaction. She's desperate to maintain the facade. She doesn't know that, but this is what her narcissism is doing through its desperation. Once again, you don't get to see the children's faces, and it seems to me that there has been some kind of emphasis or filter utilised to increase the redness of the hair. I seem to recall an earlier picture of Lilibet where her hair was nowhere near as orange as what appears in that picture. It was closer to a brown. Now, children's hair colouring can change, and also, of course, the lighting conditions can make a difference also. But you'll notice that in the picture where this one's wife appears in one of them, there looks to be reddish tints in her own hair. And I don't think that she's necessarily put them in there. I think a filter has been used, which has given this rather sort of orangey sheen to emphasise the redness of the kid's hair. Once again, she's using them in a cosmetic way to influence the audience in order to control them. As you've just watched, there are two pieces of video footage also. The first is in the kitchen, where we see a hand presumably belonging to Lilibet and a voice which talks about saying that they're beautiful. Now, either Lilibet needs to go and get some Friar's balsam and get her head over the bowl with a tea towel around it and do some inhaling to clear a very stuffy nose. Or my first response was that wasn't her voice at all. I actually thought it was Harry mimicking that of a child. But whatever it is and whether it's legitimate or not, the purpose is, once again, to show a tidbit of the child and triangulate you, the audience, with that child. We then see the coy carp, and a voice, again, presumably that of Archie's, is utilised. It's difficult to tell what he's really saying. On the whole, it's fairly irrelevant. But the point of all of this is to enable this one's wife to once again demonstrate that she is this loving mum, that she's spending time with the children, that she is doing things with them. So it enables her to manage that facade. This is the last chance saloon. So many things have failed for her that now she has to resort to basically pimping out the kids with repeated glimpses of them, but never actual footage of them so you can see them doing things, so you can see their faces, in order to try and maintain some kind of hold over the audience. I'm not going to give it you all, because then you might drift away. I'm going to keep giving you little teaser trailers of the children. Why? Because she's got nothing else left. Yes, she can turn up on somebody else's podcast, and it's just the same, people laughing at how boring she is. Yes, she has her episodes of the podcast to come out. They will continue to be ridiculed. As ever, has gone nowhere. It isn't the beast that she's claimed it to be. I've analysed separately what I think is going on with all of that. And it again has been lambasted. She's run out of options. And now, rather than just think to herself, well, I've got plenty of money in the bank. A judicious use of that means that we could live well. We don't need masses of security because we don't need to keep going places. I don't need to keep going on private jets because we don't need to necessarily go as many places. I don't really need to keep flitting to New York City for the purposes of a stupid interview or turning up at an event just so that I'm seen. But the problem for her is her narcissism demands that she does so. Her narcissism demands that she appears. And as I explained to you before how Instagram would be her undoing, it's demonstrating this because she's just providing you with the banal. She's not only providing you with the minutiae of her daily life, which is not particularly interesting, but what she does present is such that it invariably gets attacked and criticised. For instance, she puts something up in relation to cooking. Invariably people point out how performative it is and all the various cookery faux pas that she makes. She puts up something involving the children. She's criticised as a consequence of using the children, but also, for instance, as I've just talked about, the way it appears that a tint's being used, a filter's being used to emphasise the colour of the children's hair. And therefore, the problem that she's got is that she has nothing to offer. She isn't interesting. When she talks about her daily life, it's dull. In fairness, most people's daily lives are dull because that's the nature of life. When you want to hear from famous people, you want to hear about the interesting things that they do, how they felt when they scored that winning goal, what they were doing when they built up that brilliant company, how they dealt with that particular scandal which threatened to derail their fame. What was their inspiration for writing this book? What was the process like of filming in the Antarctic for 6 months? Those are the things that are interesting to people, not a mediocre woman pottering around in her garden. She has nothing meaningful or interesting to say about flowers or cookery or so far or similar matters because she is a dull, empty individual. And now, because she's in that last chance saloon, in an attempt to remain relevant and famous, she's turned to a greater use of the children, because that's the only thing that she's got left to try and stimulate some interest. And I predicted this some time ago, that eventually she would turn to the utilization of the children to try and continue the pursuit of the prime aims, or in her world, to try and remain famous, relevant, and liked. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.